911, what's your emergency?
This happened last year when I had just moved into a new town for work. I didn't know anyone there. I'm not the most outgoing guy, so making friends has always been kind of hard for me. That's when I found this site called Rent a Friend. If you haven't heard of it, Rent a Friend is basically a website where you can pay to hang out with people. Not in a weird way, it's not supposed to be romantic. It's literally just people offering their time to go to a movie, have coffee, play video games, or whatever. I figured it would be a good way to meet someone until I actually made friends. I signed up and matched with a girl named Samantha. She had similar interests to me. Horror movies, video games, coffee. She had a cute profile picture and seemed like someone I would actually be friends with in real life. We messaged a bit and she suggested we hang out for a couple of hours. Just grab some coffee and talk. I agreed. She gave me an address to pick her up at. It was a regular-looking townhouse in a quiet neighborhood. When she came out, she looked exactly like her pictures, maybe even better. I was a little nervous, but she was super friendly. We drove to a small local cafe, and honestly, the date was going great. She was funny, charming, and easy to talk to. I had actually forgotten that I paid for this interaction. After we finished our drinks, I told her I needed to swing by the hardware store nearby to pick up a new shelf for my kitchen. She said she didn't mind tagging along. But the second we stepped into the hardware store, her whole mood changed. She got quiet, and every time I asked her my opinion on something, she just kind of nodded and shrugged. But what bothered me more was how she kept looking at her phone. She was barely even trying to hide it. She turned the screen away from me every time I glanced over, like she was waiting for something. The vibe had done a complete 180, and I started to feel uneasy. I told her I'd just grab whatever I need and take her home early. That's when she said something weird. She asked if I could drop her off somewhere else, not at the house I picked her up from. She gave me an address a few blocks away. I asked her why, and she just mumbled something about her roommate being weird. I didn't press it, I just wanted to get this over with. I drove her to the new address, which looked like an older apartment complex, kind of run down. But before she got out of the car, she asked, "Would you mind walking me up to the door?" That felt off. It was just strange. But I didn't want to be rude. I figured maybe she felt unsafe in the area and wanted a guy to walk with her. As we were walking up to the front of the building, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. There was a window to the right of the door, and someone was watching us through the blinds. I could only see part of the face, but they weren't even trying to hide. Before I could say anything, the door suddenly flew open, and a man came sprinting out of the apartment straight at me. I didn't want to wait to find out what he wanted. I turned and ran back to my car. I could hear his footsteps pounding behind me. As soon as I got in and locked the door, he started slamming his fist on the windows, screaming something I couldn't make out. I threw the car into reverse and peeled out of there as fast as I could. I didn't drive home. I went straight to the police station. I filed a report, gave them both addresses, and showed them the profile from the Rent a Friend site. But when they looked into it, the ad was gone. Samantha's profile had been completely deleted. No trace of it. The original address she gave me was empty when police checked. And the second address, the apartment she asked to be dropped off at. According to the landlord, nobody named Samantha ever lived there, nor did anyone at the time. I can only imagine what their plan was. To rob me? Or even worse, harm me in some way. I still don't have a name for the guy who charged at me. For now, I plan on staying off the website Rent a Friend. It's just not worth it. I'm a 27-year-old female, and this happened about a year ago when I was going through a really rough patch in my life. I had just lost my job and was barely making it through the month with savings and a few gigs here and there. A couple of my friends, half joking, dared me to sign up for this weird website called Rent a Friend. At first I was hesitant. The idea of hanging out with complete strangers sounded sketchy. But after thinking more of it, I figured, what's the harm? I'm not doing anything illegal, and it might even be fun. Plus, I really needed the money. The requests started coming in fast. It was surprisingly easy. Coffee dates, lunch hangouts, museum trips, movie nights. Just people searching for someone to talk to or spend time with. No pressure, no expectations. Just easy money. I could make $50 or more for just an hour or two of small talk. Then there was Dave. Dave was different. He was older, like much older. I'd say early 60s, maybe late 50s if I'm being generous. But he was polite, friendly, and paid well. He booked me for lunch once, and then again the next day. Then the day after that. Before I knew it, Dave was booking me every day of the week. At first I didn't mind. Like I said, the money was good, and he wasn't creepy. Yet. But over time, he started acting more possessive. If I mentioned another friend or another client I'd seen, his whole mood would change. He would get quiet and pouty. Then he started calling me his girl and saying things like, "I treat you better than any of those other losers, don't I?" That's when things got weird. One night after a hangout, he asked me to come back to his house for a drink. I politely declined. He laughed it off, but I could tell it hit a nerve. The next day, he booked me again, but this time he got pushy. He kept making comments like, "I've spent a lot of money on you. You could at least do something for me." Then, when I told him flat out that this isn't that kind of service, he snapped. He said, "You let people rent you. What's the difference?" That was the last time I saw him. I blocked him on the site and reported the interaction, but that didn't stop Dave. A week later, I noticed a car parked across the street from my apartment. Same car, every night. Just sitting there. I couldn't see the driver at first, but then one night I caught a glimpse when he flickered a lighter. It was Dave. He started texting me from a new number. Messages like, "Who were you with today?" Or, "I thought we had something." I blocked every number he used, but they kept coming. Eventually, he sent a photo of me leaving my building with groceries. I hadn't posted anything online. That's when I realized he knew where I lived. I filed the police report and managed to get a restraining order. After that, the car disappeared. I deleted my Rent-A-Friend profile and thankfully landed a new job a few weeks later. It's been quiet since then. No more messages, no weird cars, no Dave. But sometimes, late at night, I still check the street just to make sure. I have no idea where he is now, but something tells me he's found someone new. And I hope to God she sees the red flags before it's too late. I bought my first house 3 months ago. It was a small, 2-bedroom place in what seemed like the perfect quiet neighborhood tucked away from traffic, framed by thick rows of trees and filled with older homes and older folks who mostly kept to themselves. Peaceful, safe, or at least that's what I thought. The house next to mine sat lower on the hills, its backyard backing up to mine with only a flimsy chain-link fence between. The first time I saw my neighbor, he was standing there on his back deck, motionless, arms at his side, just staring across the yard like he was looking at something only he could see. He was always doing that. At first I brushed it off. Maybe he liked the view. Maybe he was meditating or something. But then I started noticing he'd been out there every day, sometimes for hours, just standing, not drinking coffee, not on his phone, just staring. I finally approached him one Saturday morning when I saw him raking leaves. I needed to clean up my yard and hadn't bought a rake yet, so I figured it was harmless to ask.
Hey, sorry to bother you. Mind if I borrow your rake for a bit?
He didn't look up right away, just kept raking slowly like he hadn't heard me. And he stopped, turned his head slightly, and said in a low, dry voice,
Don't come on my property again.
I blinked, caught off guard,
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
but he was already walking back towards the house, dragging the rake behind him. I didn't try to talk to him after that. Then, about a week ago, I woke up around 2:30 in the morning. No reason, just that eerie restlessness that sometimes shakes you out of sleep. I got up to grab a glass of water and glanced out the kitchen window. He was in his backyard. At first I thought he was just standing again, but then I saw the shovel. He was digging a deep narrow hole in the far corner of his yard. I couldn't look away. After maybe 15 minutes, he stopped and looked around and pulled something wrapped in a trash bag from under his deck. He unwrapped it carefully. It was a laptop. He stared at the screen for a minute, lit up blue in the darkness, then placed it in the hole and began to cover it back up with dirt. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. After that, I started noticing more odd behavior. He'd pace up and down his backyard muttering to himself. One time, I swear I saw him putting something into a duffel bag that looked stained. He always had the blinds down, but sometimes at night, I see a flicker of light coming from the basement window, like he was using a flashlight down there. No other lights on in the house. Then last week, the cops came. Marked cars, unmarked SUVs, at least 6 of them. They swarmed the house just after sunrise. I stood at my window watching the whole thing unfold. Rifles drawn, shouting, kicking in the door. It was like a scene from a movie. They carried him out in cuffs. His face was calm, as if he had been expecting them. That night on the news, I saw it. His name, his face, the headline, "Local man arrested in connection with multiple homicides." They found evidence inside, photos, blood, tools, maps. But I knew something they didn't. They never found that laptop. I never told the police about it. I couldn't. What if he had found out? What if someday, somehow, he got out? I can still see him standing in the hole under that moonlight, his face blank, like he was just taking out the trash. I still think about what was on that laptop. Emails, photos, videos. I guess I'll never know. And honestly, maybe that's for the best. It's always been a quiet life for my wife and me. We live in the middle of nowhere, literally. The kind of place where you don't know the neighbors, you probably won't see them for months at a time. The kind of place where the silence can feel unsettling, like something's just waiting for you to break it. And most nights, I wouldn't have it any other way. We've got our house, some peace, and each other. And that's all I really need. Last night started like any other. We had dinner. Just a simple meal, some chicken, mashed potatoes. My wife Sarah did most of the cooking. We chatted about our day, laughed a little, and talked about the things we had to do around the house the next day. It wasn't anything exciting, but it felt normal, comforting. After dinner, I stepped outside for a smoke. I've got a spot by the edge of the woods far enough from the house that the smoke doesn't blow right back in. As I was taking a drag, I saw something that made me pause. 2 flashlights flickering through the trees, moving in the distance. I didn't think much of it at the time. Probably someone walking through the woods, maybe a couple of kids or hunters. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary for this area. The woods are dense and often play tricks on your eyes. So I finished my smoke, went inside, and we settled in to watch some TV. We were getting ready for bed when the doorbell rang. It was around 1 a.m., and I didn't expect anyone at this hour. I didn't even want to answer it, but I figured it could be something important. I opened the door, and no one was there. I looked around, confused, but there was nothing in sight. No car in the driveway, just the empty road leading to our house, dark and quiet. I chalked it up to a prank or some weird mistake, and I went back to the couch. I told Sarah, but she wasn't too worried about it. We shrugged it off and tried to get back to the show we were watching. But then, a few moments later, the doorbell rang again. This time I was getting a little annoyed. Who the hell was messing around at this time of night? I got up and went to the door again. I checked outside. Nothing. The porch light cast long shadows on the empty driveway. No cars, no people, nothing. I was starting to get frustrated now. I wasn't in the mood for games, and I wasn't in the mood to be kept up. The doorbell rang for a third time. By now, I'm getting pissed. I opened the door, ready to say something harsh, but what I saw stopped me cold. Two muscular guys, both easily over 6 foot tall, were standing there, their faces shadowed by the porch light. They looked out of place, like they didn't belong. One of them stepped forward and asked if they could use my phone. I was taken back. I wasn't expecting anyone to need help in the middle of nowhere at this hour. I hesitated for a second and told them, "Sorry, my phone doesn't get good service out here." The guy didn't seem to care. He just nodded and said their car had broken down somewhere along the road and they needed a ride into town. My gut told me something wasn't right, but I still didn't think much of it. Maybe they were just stranded. But then, before I could even respond, they shoved me backward. I hit the floor with the thud, pain exploding in my shoulder. I tried to get up, but it was too late. The two guys were already inside, and they were fast. They slammed the door behind them, and one of them threw me back onto the floor while the other grabbed Sarah, yanking her from the couch. I don't know why I didn't scream. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I was trying to think, trying to come up with a way out, but I couldn't. They tied us up, my arms and legs bound tightly with rope. The kind of knots that even if I struggled, I'd never get out of. My wife's terrified eyes met mine, and all I could do was try to reassure her with my gaze, though I didn't have any comfort to offer. Then the real horror began. The guy closest to the TV turned it on and started flickering through channels. He landed on a strange station, and suddenly, the room was filled with a haunting version of the Tiptoe Through the Tulips, the creepy song by Tiny Tim. It was surreal, disturbing. The two of them started laughing. One of them looked at us and said,
You guys have no idea how much this is going to hurt.
I could barely comprehend what they were saying through the dizziness that was setting in. The laughter made my skin crawl as they started going through our things, one by one. It was like they were taking their time, enjoying every second of it. They took everything. My computer, my TV, Sarah's jewelry, things we had worked for years to acquire. They weren't even valuable to most people, but to us, it was everything. My guitar, my camera gear, Sarah's heirloom bracelet her grandmother had passed down to her, it was all gone. Every item they took felt like a piece of us, a piece of our lives, and the whole time, they just laughed, taunted us with cruel remarks, their voice echoing in the background as Tiny Tim's song played on repeat. When they finally left, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My heart was racing. I couldn't breathe. And once they were gone, I was left with the horror knowing that they were out there, somewhere, maybe watching us from the dark. Somehow, I managed to untie myself. My hands were raw from struggling. I quickly ran over to Sarah and freed her. She was shaking, terrified, her face pale, streaked with tears. I grabbed my phone. Thankfully, I could get enough service to dial 911. It felt like hours had passed, but the police came eventually. I gave them every detail, every piece of information I could remember. But those guys were long gone by the time they arrived. They took everything, our valuables, our peace of mind, and our sense of security. But I'll tell you this, I won't let them take our lives. They can take everything we own, but they'll never take us. And wherever they are, whatever hole they crawled into, I hope they know this. I'm coming for them. Because there's no way in hell I'm going to let something like this happen again. Not to us. And I won't ever forget that goddamn song. When my friend Adam and I finally got our own place, it felt like something out of a dream. We'd been best friends since middle school, thick as thieves all through high school and college. So when we both landed jobs in the city, mine a pretty great position at a cybersecurity firm, it just made sense to move in together. We found a 2-bedroom apartment in this old building that had character, as the listing called it. Exposed brick, creaky hardwood floors, those big vintage windows that let in golden light in the evenings. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that made it cool as hell. The first couple months were great. We'd get drinks on the weekends, cook massive meals we could barely finish, and stay up playing old games like we were still teenagers. Life was good. But then, little things started happening. I'd come home from work and my room would feel off. At first, I thought I was just tired. Long hours at the office will mess with your head. But I started noticing specific things. My laptop would be slightly shifted on my desk. A hoodie that I knew I tossed on the bed would be folded neatly over a chair. I asked Adam about it casually, and he just laughed. Said maybe I was turning into one of those guys who'd forget their own routine. But then he started suggesting I rearrange my room.
Your bed would look way better on the other wall, man.
He said one night while leaning on the doorframe.
And that lamp's in a weird spot. You should move it.
At first it seemed like friendly advice, but he kept bringing it up, again and again, like he needed me to change it. Like he was seeing it in his head a certain way and couldn't stand that it wasn't like that. I'd laugh it off. I didn't want to make things weird. I was in the dating scene at the time, nothing serious, just meeting people and having fun. Sometimes I'd bring them back to the apartment for the night. That's when Adam started acting different. He wouldn't say anything directly, but I'd catch a look, tight-lipped, eyes a little too cold. Once or twice I came out to find him sitting on the couch, staring at the door to my room. When I said goodnight, he didn't respond. I came home one night and things were getting heated. I reached into my nightstand for a condom. I didn't notice anything until I unrolled it. There were holes. Tiny, deliberate ones. I checked another. Same thing. All of them compromised. A chill went through me. This wasn't a manufacturing defect. This was someone sabotaging me. I didn't say anything right away. I apologized and made up a story and got through the rest of the night. But when I was all alone, and I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like hours just staring at that drawer, I knew it was Adam. Who else had access? Who else knew where I kept them? The next morning, I packed up everything I could fit in my car and left without saying a word. I didn't confront him. I didn't even want to see his face. I didn't want to know what else he might have done. That was 6 months ago. I changed my number, moved across town, and I haven't heard from him since. A few months ago, my girlfriend and I moved into a decent little apartment just outside the city. Nothing special, but it was ours. Quiet, clean, and finally felt like a step into real adult life. Things were going great between us. We had our routines, shared groceries, split rent, and even started making plans for the future. Then my friend Chris hit me up. He and I had been close in college, partied together, crashed in the same dorm, the usual. He told me he had just lost his job and got kicked out of his place. Said he only needed a few weeks to get back on his feet, to find work and move on. I asked my girlfriend about it, and after a short talk, we agreed to let him stay in our spare bedroom. I mean, he was my friend, right? What's the worst that could happen? At first, things were fine. He was chill, helped around the apartment, and seemed grateful. But it didn't take long before I started noticing things. He kept making weird compliments to my girlfriend. Stuff like,
"You're way too hot for this guy. Or if he ever messes up, you know where to find me."
it was always said with a laugh, trying to pass off as a joke. I didn't like it, but I let it go. Chris was just being Chris. I figured he had no filter. But then came the showers. Almost every time he took one, he'd leave the bathroom door wide open. Not just cracked, wide open. Steam rolling into the hallways, water running, and Chris just walking around in there like it was his own personal locker room. At first I thought it was just carelessness, but then he started making it more obvious. Waiting until he knew my girlfriend was in the hallway or kitchen before stepping out of the bathroom completely naked, towel in hand, but never actually using it. He'd walk past us like it was no big deal. That's when I confronted him. I told him flat out it was disrespectful and that if he wanted to stay with us, he needed to put clothes on before leaving the damn bathroom. He apologized, said it was a bad habit from his last place, and promised to fix it. And for a few weeks he did. Then it got worse. He started talking to my girlfriend when I wasn't home, asking her personal questions, making subtle but disgusting comments like,
"Don't you ever wonder what it would be like to be with someone more adventurous?"
Stuff she didn't even want to tell me at first because she knew how angry I'd get. But the final straw? We caught him stealing her underwear. I had recently installed a few small security cameras around the apartment after a break-in scare in our building. Nothing crazy, just one in the hallway and the laundry area. I didn't even think to check them until one night my girlfriend told me some of her underwear had gone missing again. I went through the footage, and there he was, in the middle of the night, sneaking into the laundry basket, rifling through her clothes, and pocketing her underwear before slipping back into his room. The next morning, I didn't say anything at first. I waited until he left the apartment, grabbed his things, and tossed everything of his out onto the porch. When he came back, I confronted him with the footage. He tried denying it, saying he was just moving laundry around, but he knew the game was up. I told him to get out, right then, right there. He tried apologizing again, saying he was drunk and not thinking straight. I didn't care. I wasn't going to let some pervert live under the same roof as my girlfriend and pretend like it was okay. We haven't spoke to him since. I still don't understand how someone I once trusted could turn out like that. And honestly, it creeps me out to think how far it could have gone if we hadn't caught him when we did. Sometimes helping a friend isn't worth the risk. When I first got accepted into college, I was pretty excited, a little nervous, and just praying I'd have a decent roommate. I had heard horror stories about people being stuck with weirdos, addicts, or creeps, and the idea of living in a tiny dorm with a complete stranger didn't sit right with me, but I figured how bad could it really be? Move-in day came fast. The dorm was old, built in like the 1960s and never updated, but it was clean and I was just relieved to be out of my hometown. When I first met my roommate, James, he seemed normal, a little quiet, but he was polite. And honestly, after all my worrying, I figured I got lucky. He didn't smell, didn't bring weird posters or taxidermy or anything like that. He shook my hand and helped me move in, and even offered me one of his extra pillows. I thought, hey, maybe we'll actually be friends. That first night went fine, though I noticed something a little odd. When the lights went out, he didn't go to sleep. I figured maybe he had just trouble sleeping the first night like I did, so I rolled over and ignored the sound of him shuffling around in the dark. But over the next few days, things started to get weird. Every night when I turned in, James would stay up, not on his phone and not studying. I'd wake up around 2 or 3 a.m. to him on the floor doing push-ups in the pitch black. One night I saw him hunched over a jigsaw puzzle spread across the tile like he was in some kind of trance. No music, no lights, just breathing heavily when he pushed pieces into place like it was the only thing keeping him alive. I started wearing earbuds to sleep just to block out the sounds, but even that didn't help when he started sleep talking. He'd mutter things, garble at first, but then I started picking up actual words.
"Don't go. Not yet. Stay still."
Sometimes he'd giggle quietly, like someone just told him a joke. Other times he'd shout suddenly and violently in his sleep, jerking upright and slamming back down onto the mattress like nothing happened. But the worst part, the part that made me lose sleep for the rest of that semester, was about 2 weeks in. I woke up in the middle of the night and something felt off. You know that feeling when you just know you're not alone? I opened my eyes and James was standing at the foot of my bed. Just standing there, not moving and not saying anything. He was in shadow, but I could see just enough by the moonlight coming through the blinds. His eyes were wide open, locked on me. His face was blank, like a statue. I didn't know if he was asleep or awake. I whispered his name.
James?
He didn't respond. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen. I just laid there holding my breath, pretending to be asleep. My heart pounding so loud I thought he could hear it. Eventually he turned and walked back to his bed. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning he acted like nothing happened, just nodded at me like usual, brushed his teeth, packed his bag, and headed to class. That was the moment I decided I had to get out of there. I filed for a room transfer that day, told the housing office he was sleepwalking and that it was affecting my ability to sleep or study. I didn't mention the staring. I didn't want them to think I was the crazy one. Luckily, they had an open spot in another building and moved me by the end of the week. When I told James I was switching, he just stared at me. Didn't ask why, didn't say goodbye, just watched me pack. After I left, he never texted or messaged me again. It was like I never existed to him. And honestly, I'm perfectly fine with that. Some people say college is where you meet lifelong friends. I'm just glad I got out without becoming someone's late night hobby. Every Saturday morning, like clockwork, I took my dog Luna to the same dog park on the edge of town. It became our little tradition. Me, sipping coffee on a cold bench, while she ran through the open field chasing tennis balls and making new furry friends. For months, everything felt normal. Peaceful, even. The regulars knew each other by name, or at least by their dog's name, and there was a comfortable routine to it all. But a few weeks ago, something changed. It started when I noticed a man standing by the fence. He wasn't dressed like the usual park visitors. No leash in hand, no mud-splattered sneakers, and most importantly, no dog. At first I thought he might be waiting for someone, maybe watching a relative's pet, or just enjoying the view. But then he approached me. Luna trotted back to my side, completely unaware of the tension that suddenly filled the air.
You come here often?
He asked while smiling. His eyes didn't match the smile, though. They were flat. I forced a polite chuckle and nodded. Every Saturday. He started asking more questions.
You live nearby? What's your dog's name? Do you come here alone? What do you do for work?
I gave vague answers, hoping he'd take the hint. He didn't. The next Saturday, he was there again. Not in the park this time, but walking the dirt trail that curved around the perimeter. I tried to ignore him, throwing Luna's ball a little further than usual, keeping my distance. That's when I noticed the phone in his hand, pointed directly at me. At first I thought I was imagining it, but no. He wasn't even trying to hide it. The next week, the same thing. And the week after that. The other dog owners started noticing too. I overheard one woman whisper to her friend he was taking pictures of her daughter while she played with our beagle. The tension at the park grew heavier every Saturday. A few of us decided enough was enough and filed a formal complaint with the city. The park staff brought it to the attention of the police. That following weekend he showed up again, this time standing at the trailhead.
but so did the cops. I watched from the far end of the park as two officers approached him. They asked him a few questions and then requested his phone. That's when his expression changed. He resisted briefly, but eventually handed it over. What they found chilled me to the bone. His photo gallery was filled with hundreds of images. Me, other women, and even children, all taken at the dog park. He had screenshots of social media profiles, saved photos from accounts that had been public, and lists of names. But it got worse. When the police searched his car parked along the curb, they found a shovel in the trunk, black trash bags, a folded tarp, a ski mask, and rope. It wasn't just bizarre anymore. It was terrifying. He hadn't technically done anything illegal, at least not at first glance, but the evidence painted a disturbing picture. They took him in for questioning, and for a while, the park was quiet again. Even now, weeks later, the memory sticks with me. I can't stop thinking, was he planning something? Was he stalking me or someone else? What if the police hadn't gotten involved in time? I still take Luna to the park, just not every Saturday, not on a schedule anymore, and never alone. Because even in a place as innocent as a dog park, you never really know who's watching. I live in a smaller town in upstate New York, not quite rural, but not close enough to anything that would be considered busy. It's mostly woods, houses spaced far apart, and a few community spots scattered around. One of those spots is the local dog park, barely maintained, mostly grass and trees with a single path that loops through a patch of woods behind the main field. I've been going there every Saturday morning with my golden retriever Charlie for years now. It was peaceful, familiar, and our routine. It was my version of church, I guess, until 3 weeks ago when I met him. It was a chilly morning, sun still behind the clouds, and there weren't many people at the park. Just me, Charlie, and what I thought was another early riser sitting on the bench. He looked out of place immediately. He wasn't dressed like someone walking a dog. He wore these long, layered robes, dark green, almost moss-colored, with symbols I didn't recognize embroidered across the shoulders. His beard was long and tangled, almost gray, and clutched something to his chest like it was sacred. At first I thought it was a book, but when I got closer, I saw it was this strange, polished wooden box covered in carvings. Spirals, suns, eyes. He watched Charlie run around for a while before finally speaking up. That's a good animal. Loyal, gentle, uncorrupted.
I chuckled nervously, trying to be polite. Yeah, he's a good boy. Then he said,
He can be saved, you know, but he's not the only one.
I stopped. Excuse me? He looked at me and then really looked at me, eyes wide, like he had just realized something profound.
You have it too. The flicker. That small red spark. You've seen things, felt things. You know the veil is thin here, don't you?
That's when I took a step back. I asked if he was part of the church or something, just trying to ground the conversation in something normal. But he shook his head and smiled. That kind of smile that people wear when they know something you don't.
No, not church. Not their church. I belong to the Hands of the Hollow Sun. We don't kneel to false names.
Hands of the Hollow Sun. I have never heard anything like that. It sounded made up, but
but the way he said it made my skin crawl. I got Charlie back on the leash and made some excuse to leave. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I also didn't want to hear another word out of this guy's mouth. As I turned away, he called out behind me. "You'll be back. They always come back. The hollow sun rises for all, even in the dark." I didn't sleep much that night. The next weekend I debated not going, but I figured maybe it was a one-time thing, just a local weirdo. Maybe he moved on. He hadn't. This time he was already waiting by the tree. No box, just his hands collapsed tightly in front of him, head bowed like he was praying. When Charlie and I stepped into the field, he lifted his head and smiled. "You came back. That means you're listening." I didn't respond. I just threw the ball for Charlie, trying to pretend he wasn't there. But he kept talking, loud enough that I had to hear. "You know they bury them under here, don't you? The ones that reject the flame. The hollow sun gives, but it also consumes." He pointed to the ground. "The dogs hear them. That's why they bark at nothing. But when it's not nothing, it's what's left." I felt sick. Charlie suddenly froze mid-run and started barking at the trees. There was nothing there, or so I thought. That night when I got home, there was something on my front porch. A small square envelope, no stamp, and no return address. Inside was a single photo. It was me and Charlie at the park, taken from the tree line. On the back, in smeared black ink, was a sentence: "You can both still be saved." I didn't go back to the park the next weekend, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. About him, about what he said, about what Charlie had growled at. I started researching Hands of the Hollow Sun. Nothing. No websites, no mentions in forums, not even Reddit. But then I stumbled across this archived blog from 2009. It was half broken, but there were mentions of a group with a similar name, a cult maybe, believed in some kind of solar rebirth, said that the sun wasn't a star, it was a being, and that when the veil burns away, it would consume all unclean light. One post mentioned rituals involving animals. Another talked about something they called the pairing. It didn't explain much, but it felt too close what I had heard, too specific. 2 nights ago, I took Charlie out to the backyard around midnight. He stopped at the edge of the grass and wouldn't move, just stared. I looked too. There was a man standing just beyond the tree line. I couldn't see his face, but I didn't need to. The robes were enough. He didn't move, didn't speak, but he lifted both hands, slowly, palms out, and in one hand he was holding something small. It glowed slightly in the dark, flickering like a dying firefly. It was Charlie's name tag. Charlie was standing right next to me. I called the police, of course. They found footprints, nothing else. Said it was probably just some disturbed guy trying to scare me. But yesterday I found something buried in the flower bed by my porch. It was a box. Polished wood covered in carvings. I didn't open it. I already knew what's inside. They said my dog could be saved, but they never asked if I wanted to be. Now I'm afraid it's not a choice anymore. Because some nights when I wake up, Charlie isn't on the bed. He's just standing by the window, staring at the sun, even when it's still dark outside. Remember, not every light in the sky is meant to guide you, and not every stranger is just a weirdo with a sermon. Sometimes they're looking for someone to bring home.
I don't expect anyone to believe me. I wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't lived through it. But I'm sharing this now because I don't think I have much time left. You've probably heard of Polybius, the so-called cursed arcade game from Portland in the early 80s. It's been passed around on a few Reddit threads, dark web forums, even a few cheap documentaries. Most people think it's just an urban legend, a black cabinet, no markings, just a strange glowing title, Polybius. Kids who played it supposedly got sick, nightmares, amnesia, seizures. Some even said the game drove them to madness, or worse. They said it vanished just as quickly as it appeared. No one really knows who made it. Some say it was the government. Others whisper about MK Ultra, or that it was some sort of CIA experiment hidden in plain sight. I used to think it was just a cool creepypasta, until I found the machine. Or maybe it found me. It was late 2023, and I was working freelance as a collector for old arcade cabinets. It was more of a side hustle than anything, but I'd buy busted machines, restore them, and sell them to bars and retro lounges for a good markup. The nostalgia economy was booming. One day, I got a strange email, no subject line, just this. I have something rare. It's not on any list. Black cabinet, no logo. Text says Polybius. It's in storage and I want it gone. $800, cash only. You come to me. Attached was a blurry photo of an old cabinet deep in a dark garage. The screen was off, but there it was. Polybius. I thought it had to be a hoax, some fan project maybe, but even fan builds are worth a lot to collectors. I took the deal. The guy's place was just outside Spokane, Washington. I got there around 7 p.m., just as the sun dipped behind the trees. His house looked abandoned, windows boarded, yard overgrown, and that strange silence that settles in places people forgot. He was already outside waiting, middle-aged, greasy, yellowish beard. Didn't give a name, didn't shake hands, just pointed to the garage. Inside, under a tarp, was the machine. It was pristine. No dents, no rust. Screen intact, joystick clean. I almost didn't believe it. I asked him where he got it. He said only this. Don't play it longer than 5 minutes. I mean it. I laughed, thinking it was part of the bit. But he didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. After loading it into my truck, he handed me a manila folder. You'll need this, he muttered, then shut his door. I didn't open the folder until I got home. Inside were pages of typewritten notes, photocopies of diagrams, and a worn cassette tape labeled Log Number 3, Eyewitness. I set the machine up in my garage, still half expecting it not to power on. But it did. The screen flared up a deep neon green, humming softly. Then the word Polybius appeared in blocky, curved text. There was no attached screen, no music, just a pulsing sound, almost like a heartbeat. I tapped the start button. The screen shifted into a fast-paced tunnel of geometric patterns, pulsing shapes, spiraling lines, and a flickering dot I was supposed to move with the joystick. The game was like a blend of Tempest and Victor Pilot, but wrong. The sounds were off, discordant, like whispers fed through a modem. I played it for 4 minutes, then the screen suddenly flashed black and displayed a single phrase. You are being watched. The game reset. I figured it was some kind of Easter egg, but my head was pounding, and when I walked back inside, my nose started bleeding. I chalked it up to stress, or maybe the mold in the garage. But that night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same shapes in tunnels, only now I was in them, falling through them. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, the sound of that heartbeat pulse still ringing in my ears. The next day, I dug into the documents from the folder. One was a redacted memo from something called SIN. Supposedly, Special Intelligence Nexus. I'd never heard of it, but the seal looked official. Inside was a breakdown of something labeled Project Polybius. It described the early experiments using video games to induce programmable hallucinations and behavior controlling. Target subjects, teenagers. Ideal environment, unsupervised arcades. There were test logs too. One entry described a subject who played for 6 minutes. The following day, he was found in a parking lot, unresponsive, eyes wide open, mumbling numbers. Another log mentioned men in black suits retrieving malfunctioning units. That same entry included a warning. Prolonged exposures may cause psychic imprinting. Do not engage without counter-conditioning measures in place. The last page of the file was a list of machine serial numbers. Mine was listed, crossed out in red ink. I tried to record footage of the game on my phone, but every time I aimed the camera at the screen, the image glitched out. I uploaded a few frames online, and within an hour, my post was flagged and removed. No warning, no explanation. Later that night, I played the tape labeled Log Number 3. The voice was shaky, paranoid.
They tracked me down for 3 days after I found the cabinet. They started dreaming in code, binary strings, and they couldn't stop playing. Even when I was at the machine, it played me. I saw them. The only ones behind it. They're not the government. They're older, beneath everything. If you're hearing this, destroy it. Do not try to beat the game. That's when they come.
The tape cut off with static and what sounded like a knock. That was the same night I started getting phone calls. No number. Just silence on the other end. One time I heard breathing. Once I picked up and a voice said, "You've seen too much," and then hung up. I haven't touched a machine in weeks now, but I still see that tunnel in my dreams. Sometimes I wake up standing in front of it. No idea how it got there. The screen always says the same thing now. Level 2 unlocked. Return. I've moved it to a storage unit, padlocked, covered in a heavy cloth. But I feel it, like it's waiting for me. I've contacted a few people in the underground arcade scene. Collectors, hackers, urban explorers. One guy from Oregon said he remembered the name from the 80s. Claimed his brother disappeared after playing a black cabinet at a pizza joint. Said the machine was gone the next day. Another source said there were 6 total Polybius machines. All were recovered, except for one. The one I found. So why am I telling you this? Because 2 nights ago I saw a black van parked across the street. No plates, just sitting there with the engine running. It was there again this morning. And now, my emails are bouncing, my phone's acting weird. This will probably get deleted too. But if it gets through, if you are listening, please believe me. If you ever see a black arcade machine unmarked, humming softly with a pulsing green light, don't play it. And if you do, don't play it for more than 5 minutes. I was home all alone for the weekend. My parents had gone out of town for a wedding and I had the place to myself. I didn't mind though, I liked the solitude. I could stretch out on the couch, watch whatever I wanted, and eat junk food without anyone judging me. So that's exactly what I did. I made myself some popcorn and settled into a movie. But as the night went on, something felt off. It started when I was in the kitchen getting a drink. I thought I heard something from the living room. A faint sound like a child's toy playing. I shrugged it off, figuring I was hearing things or maybe the neighbor kids were playing outside. But the sound continued, growing louder, like a familiar melody. It was the unmistakable tune of a Jack-in-the-Box. I frowned and set my glass down on the counter. I hadn't seen a Jack-in-the-Box in the house for years. I walked into the living room hoping to find the source of the strange sound. At first I saw nothing out of place. The TV was off, the couch pillows were arranged neatly, and then I saw it. Sitting in the middle of the floor right in front of the fireplace was a small, old-fashioned Jack-in-the-Box. Its painted face was cracked, its cheerful clown grin now chipped and faded, and the music. It was playing over and over as though it had a life of its own. I felt a chill run through me, my heart skipping a beat. I didn't remember leaving the toy out. I didn't even own one anymore. I crept closer to it, my eyes glued to the toy. The lid was half open, the spring inside creaking, as though it was about to pop open. My breath quickened. This was wrong. Suddenly the music cut off. Then the lid flew open with a jar and snap, and a clown figure jumped out. But it wasn't a regular clown. Its face was distorted, pale, and sickly with the wide, bulging eyes. It looked like it was smiling, but the smile wasn't right. I jumped back, heart pounding in my chest. My hands were shaking. What the hell was happening? I stood frozen, my mind scrambling for an explanation, but there was no time to think. A loud crash from the back of the house shattered the silence. It sounded like glass breaking. I whipped around, my eyes darting toward the hallway. A shadow moved at the far end. Someone was in the house. I wasn't imagining this. Someone had broken in. Panic hit me like a wave. I didn't know who it was, but the thought of them creeping through my house was enough to make my stomach lurch. I grabbed my phone, hands trembling, and dialed 911.
911, what's your emergency? I think there's someone in my house.
I gasped, voice tight with fear.
I'm home alone. I heard something break. Please hurry. Stay on the line. We're sending someone right away. Can you find a safe place to hide? I'm in the living room. I think they're in the back of the house. I don't know where they are now.
I could hear the operator's calm voice in the background instructing me to stay on the line. The seconds dragged by like hours. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to make myself as small as possible. The music from the Jack-in-the-Box started again, that haunting tune echoing through the house like a mocking lullaby. I swallowed hard, my mind raced. The figure with the creepy smile, the sound of breaking glass. I had no idea who was in the house with me. But something felt horribly wrong. It wasn't just a random burglar. I had a feeling this was no coincidence. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. The floorboards creaked and a shadow appeared in the doorway. A figure emerged from the darkness. A man, his face hidden by a mask, but I could see a glint of something in his hand. A knife. He stepped into the living room, his eyes scanning the space, and then they locked on to me. My blood turned to ice. The operator was still on the line, but I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my mind numb. The man's lips curled into a twisted grin as he raised the knife. Then, suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air, drowning out the eerie music. The man's head snapped towards the window. He hesitated, his eyes flickering between me and the door. I took a deep breath, knowing the cops were closing in. The figure made a run for it, rushing towards the back door as the sirens grew louder. I heard the front door burst open moments later, and voices shouting. It was the police, thank God. I slumped to the floor, my body shaking. I couldn't believe what had just happened. The man was caught not far from the house, and the police assured me they had him under control. But the question still gnawed at me. Why had he come here? How had he known I was alone? I stared at the jack-in-the-box on the floor. The music had stopped, but it was no less chilling. The toy, that haunting melody, it felt like a warning. The police said it was just a random break-in, but I knew in my gut there was something more to it. Something sinister. I couldn't shake the feeling that that clown smile would haunt me long after the sirens had faded. I had always loved Christmas. The lights, the tree, the warmth of the house against the cold winter air. But this year it was different. I was home alone for the first time, my parents away visiting relatives, and my friends were all busy with their own holiday plans. I didn't mind at first. It was peaceful, almost magical, like I had the entire house to myself. Around midnight I sat on the couch watching a Christmas movie. I heard a soft knock at the door. Who would be here on Christmas Eve? I didn't expect anybody, and the streets had been empty all night. I glanced out the window. Nothing but snow and streetlights. Another knock, louder this time. Hesitant, I stood up, trying to ignore the chill crawling up my spine. I peered through the peephole. No one. I was about to turn away when I heard again, soft and deliberate, like someone tapping their fingers against the door. Hello? I called, my voice shaking. No answer. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. A small gift sat on the doorstep, wrapped in gold wrapping paper with a red bow on top. I didn't remember seeing it there earlier when I checked. I opened the door just enough to grab it. There was no card or sign of who it was from, only the eerie silence of the night. I closed the door quickly, locking it, and turned the gift over in my hands. My fingers trembled as I pulled at the ribbon. Inside was a porcelain doll. Its eyes wide open, its expression unsettling, lifelike. It looked too real, too alive. I shivered, placing it on the table as I tried to shake off the growing sense of dread. The house felt colder now, the air thick with something I couldn't name. I reached for my phone to call my parents, but the screen was blank, no signal. Then, from upstairs, I heard it, a soft creak, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Heavy, dragging footsteps. I stood frozen, my pulse racing. I grabbed the nearest object, which was a lamp. I slowly made my way towards the stairs. The footsteps grew louder. My breathing quickened. I reached the bottom of the staircase and saw a shadow flicker at the top. Hello? I called, my voice trembling. No answer. Suddenly, the doll's head turned, just slightly as if it were looking at me. I backed away in horror, stumbling towards the door. But before I could reach it, the footsteps started again. This time, descending the stairs. I turned to run, but the front door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The doll's eyes never left me. And then, in the quiet, I heard a voice whisper, distant but unmistakable.
I told you I'd be back.
I never thought my parents would go this far. It started innocently enough with them telling me they were going away for the weekend to visit family. I was 16, old enough to stay home by myself. They said they'd leave me a list of things to do, check in every few hours, and everything would be fine. But something about this weekend felt different. It started the first night. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed something odd. A text from my mom. She never texted me late.
Don't go out tonight. Promise me.
The message was short and direct. I laughed it off, thinking maybe she was just being overly protective. I texted back, joking about it, saying I was planning on staying in anyways. Her response was almost immediate.
Seriously, it's important.
I brushed it off as paranoia, but the nagging feeling stuck with me. I spent the evening watching TV, glancing out the door every few minutes. It was quiet. Even the house seemed still, like something was wrong, even though I couldn't put my finger on it. I went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. Every noise in the house made me tense, every creak on the floorboards, the rattle of the window. I told myself it was just my imagination, but the unease lingered. Around 2 a.m. I woke up to a loud bang from downstairs. I shot right up in bed, my heart racing. The sound had come from the kitchen. It wasn't the wind or the house settling. It was something real. I grabbed my phone and texted my mom.
Mom, are you there?
No reply. I waited a minute, but nothing. I wasn't sure whether to call the police, but something told me to check it out first. I crept out of bed, grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, and slowly made my way downstairs. The house was eerily dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the streetlight outside. I could feel my breath quicken as I descended, the steps creaking under my weight. When I reached the kitchen, my stomach dropped. The back door was wide open. How had it opened? I was certain I locked it before going to bed. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I jumped. It was a text from my dad.
Don't go near the door. Don't trust anyone.
I felt like I was going to be sick. Panic set in, but there was a strange sense of urgency that made me move. I texted back immediately. What do you mean? What's going on? There was no reply. The silence in the house was deafening, broken only by the soft breeze outside. I stood there for a moment trying to calm my racing thoughts, but before I could decide what to do, I heard something. A voice, soft but unmistakable, came from upstairs. It was faint at first, like someone was whispering, but it grew louder. My name. Come upstairs. Please help us. I didn't know what to think. My body screamed at me to run, but my legs felt paralyzed. The voice was soft, almost like it was coming from behind the walls, but it sounded familiar. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was so chilling, like it knew me. I grabbed my phone again, texting my mom one more time. Are you okay? Where are you? No response. The voice continued upstairs. My breath quickened as I slowly made my way towards the stairs. I couldn't explain it, but something in my gut told me I had to go up there. The moment I reached the landing, the voice stopped. The silence was suffocating. My eyes scanned the dark hallway. The shadows seemed to grow longer and darker. I slowly walked down the hall to my parents' room. The door was slightly open. I pushed it open, my heart pounding, and then I saw it. There was a note on the bed folded neatly, as if someone had placed it there just for me. It read, "We hope this teaches you a lesson." I was still trying to process what I was seeing when I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat, and froze. A man, a tall figure dressed in black, stood in the doorway. His face was obscured by a mask, one I couldn't recognize. He stepped forward, and my instincts screamed to run, but my body refused to move. My legs felt like concrete. But before I could react, another text came through. It was from my mom.
We told you not to trust anyone. It was never about the weekend.
I didn't understand what was happening. My mind raced and everything felt like it was falling apart. The man stepped forward again, but this time I saw something glinting in his hand. It was a small knife. Panic set in. Was this really happening? Was he here to kidnap me? Why didn't the police come when I called them? My thoughts spiraled. Suddenly, the door to the stairwell slammed open behind me, and in that moment, everything became clearer. It wasn't a stranger. My parents. They were standing at the top of the stairs watching. The mask-wearing man wasn't a burglar. He was them. They set this all up. I stood frozen, too stunned to speak as they made their way toward me. My dad's voice, calm but cold, echoed through the room.
We needed to show you the consequences of your actions,
He said.
You never listened to us. You think we're just being overprotective, but we were right all along. You need to learn what happens when you don't take us seriously.
My mom's eyes were hard, devoid of the warmth I had always known.
We wanted you to see what real danger looks like.
The room spun, my head dizzy with disbelief. They hadn't gone to a wedding. They had orchestrated this whole thing. Using a stranger, a fake break-in, even the fake text to teach me a lesson? The tears welded up, the shock slowly fading into fury. How could they do this to me? How far had they planned to go? The man, my dad, took a step closer.
We did this because you needed to understand. You will listen from now on.
And in that moment, I realized there was nothing I could do. I was trapped. And the worst part wasn't the fear or the fact that they had manipulated me. It was the gut-wrenching knowledge that they truly believed they were teaching me a lesson. And I wasn't sure if I'd ever feel safe in this house again.